See a few people slowly trickling in here. We're just going to give it a couple minutes, give a quick intro, and then we'll kick off with some Q&A. Thanks for joining us on a Saturday morning or evening, wherever you may be. All right, fantastic, guys. So yeah, I guess we'll kick this off. We're right at 9 o'clock right now, Pacific time, where we're based in Nevada in the US. The first question came through as, Michael, tell us more about your background in crypto, history of the company. Background in cryptocurrency is quite interesting. It traces back to 2013. Co-founder on this company, Gabriel Allred, and I were good friends. He had introduced me to crypto mining and crypto trading and speculating, and really kicked off and went full speed into crypto at that time. It maxed out my house with some crypto miners, set up a number of GPU rigs, ultimately got into cloud mining, and then running a little portfolio of sorts, a pooled kind of investment vehicle for some friends on crypto itself, and never looked back. We launched the company in 2016 with some of that foundational background and knowledge and experience in crypto, and yeah, never looked back from there. History of the company. So at the time in 2016, when we launched, it was under the name of the Tokes platform. And the intent there was really just to deliver these decentralized peer-to-peer payment solutions based on blockchain and crypto to the legal cannabis industry. Obviously, we have evolved quite significantly since then. So, into Multichain Ventures that it is today. The company encompasses a number of different brands and divisions and verticals. And so we still have our efforts in cannabis with Tokes platform, but we also now have a number of additional divisions. So that includes Cubed Pay, which is industry agnostic digital currency payment processing. It includes Eden, the EPSIS decentralized network, as well as our sister company, Relay Cloud. Within the payments division itself, so Cubed and Tokes platform, there's a number of underlying products. That's our point of sale software, an e-commerce suite, web component plugin modules. So people that are running web stores today and have an interest in accepting cryptocurrency can do so through our web component plugin. And then our base layer of our technology, and this is the payments API. So what we can accomplish with this is deliver our underlying payment capabilities and technologies in digital currency transaction processing to any external developer without the need to use one of our interfaces. Eden itself is really a supply chain visibility tool set, otherwise known as provenance. And so this is commonly used within the cannabis industry for things like seed to sale tracking and compliance. Given the high degree of regulatory requirements in tracking the movement of that product within a state, it's critically important that you have accurate, immutable data behind that. And so what we do with Eden is essentially couple that with existing ERP software or seed to sale software to deliver blockchain as a data layer in addition to the existing reporting systems. And this just adds that layer of transparency, the redundance of the decentralized and distributed networks, and again, accuracy and immutability of data. Relay Cloud got its start because of how we developed our own sophisticated backend software to host our applications. So it's built on all of the latest cutting edge open source technology for cloud hosting. We use Docker, Kubernetes, continuous integration pipelines. And really the result is that we have highly scalable, highly reliable application deployment. And because of how much energy and effort went into that infrastructure for ourselves, And because of how valuable we saw the tool set, we spun that off as its own separate company and now make that tool set available to external developers. So across the ecosystem too, I will say, we have the Tokes token integrated throughout. This is a critical piece of our ecosystem itself. And so, for all different types of things, like being able to pay for our products and services, pay for subscription fees or transaction fees within our software, all of those can be done with our digital currency unit with Tokes itself, and the user receives discounts for doing that. So we think it's quite an appealing proposition for maybe a merchant who has an interest in subscribing to a year-long subscription of our service to be able to receive a 30 or 40% discount off of those fees simply for paying us with our own token. So, I mean, those are really all of the existing products that are in our pipeline today, but expanding beyond that, we also will be incorporating additional entities, even external entities. These are kind of our own in-house brands that we've built up over the last 3 years. But the idea is to continue to expand the ecosystem and continue to form partnerships. And so as we see new external projects, whether they're in crypto or not, or cannabis, or just merchants, or just other businesses in general that are interested in integrating blockchain solutions into their business style in some way, we certainly want to get those entities involved in our ecosystem and involved in what we're doing here today. So I hope that helps answer the first question on some background. I'll just keep reading the questions here as they come through. So if you guys have anything you want to know about us, it's an open format, open forum. Feel free to drop your question on the side there. Okay, Brian on Telegram asks, is this only for the cannabis industry? Sort of address this. Right, so that's where we started, was the cannabis industry, and we still see this as being, largely the biggest opportunity that's in front of us today. And that's why we set out with the intent of delivering this solution to them 3 years ago. So, I think with any business, it's really about being able to identify a problem and then provide a solution for it. That's what creates value. And so the cannabis industry today, for those of you who are not aware, particularly within the US, faces a pretty significant challenge with both electronic payments and with access to banking. So most of these states, many now, probably 35 states or so, have some degree of legalization of cannabis, whether that be recreational, which just means any adult over the age of 21 typically can consume it, or medical marijuana consumption. So you must have some medical basis requiring or allowing for the treatment using cannabis. However, it's still not federally legal. And so FDIC, or federally regulated entities like banks who have FDIC insurance, typically will not do business with anyone in this industry for fear of losing their own licenses or essentially damaging their own business. And also the perception around working with cannabis businesses is still fairly negative. And so what we can do with these decentralized solutions and with blockchain is really provide a peer-to-peer method, a decentralized method of solving those very problems. So everything from private key management, storage, self-sovereign storage of your wealth, of your funds. That's if you're managing your own crypto wallets or your own crypto assets, to providing payments through our software. And again, I guess I would emphasize that our software itself doesn't necessarily process transactions per se. We provide the interfaces that allow these businesses to communicate directly with blockchain and directly to other individuals who are looking to pay with their digital currency assets. So just to elaborate on that quickly as well, on the actual functionality of the payment technology, it is fairly sophisticated. We have a couple of core functions, the first of which is price conversion. And so this is absolutely critical if you're a business that's accustomed to pricing goods in your own national domestic currency, which most people are. So within the United States, that's the US dollar, Canada, obviously Canadian dollar, the Chinese yen, whatever the case may be, you're used to receiving value in your national domestic currency. If you're willing to accept a digital currency transaction, what needs to take place is essentially some type of foreign exchange. And so what we do is go out and we query markets, open markets, and determine, based on the liquidity that exists there, what is the weighted average price that we can derive from a particular transaction. and then deliver that price, that value to the consumer to send into the merchant. It's important because the second component of what we do is a trade processing engine. And so we allow that merchant to specify with us in advance what their desired exposure to these digital currency assets actually is. And so that could be 100% stable token, or that could be any proportion of different digital currency assets that add up to 100%. So for example, 25% of 4 different assets, we have the ability then to take that information, take the received asset, convert that into the 4 desired assets, and deliver that then to either direct to the merchant for them to manage themselves, or to a custodian account that we have established on their behalf. So I hope that helps, Brian, but I guess the short answer is no, it's not just for the cannabis industry. We see digital currency payments as being a tremendous opportunity and really a new realm of payments in general. So that's where Cubed comes in, and where we're targeting our industry agnostic payment processing. Eden, while we have the seed to sale tracking element of that, we also see that as valuable for things like farm to table food tracking, or tracking the provenance of diamonds to ensure that they were ethically mined, things like this. So anytime that you're just looking to track a product from point of origin all the way through to the end consumer, that's where we see Eden coming in. And then Relly is not really a cannabis product at all. Relly is back-end hosting services and managed DevOps. So hope that helps. So again, we're kind of jumping through here. We're jumping back and forth just between different mediums to get some questions, but please feel free to drop your question in the channel here. Okay, we've got another question coming in. We know you made some legislative efforts in Nevada around cannabis. What specifically was that about, and what is the result? This is really a fantastic question, and really big news for us. I can't share too much right at the moment, but this is really the result of a couple of years of effort. So back in 2018, we started having discussions with a then candidate for treasurer in the state of Nevada, Zach Conine. We participated with a number of other individuals and groups, or companies rather. And the question was, how can you provide a closed loop pilot program solution for the legal cannabis industry? Zach's vision at the time was essentially a tokenized solution, interestingly enough. And Zach ultimately went on to get elected in 2019 and proposed legislation that would allow for a program like this to exist. And again, really the idea of the program is, how can you take a tokenized system, a closed loop system as it's typically referred to. Sometimes these are, or in many cases, these are kind of card schemes. You can think of like prepaid debit card systems where consumers can put cash in. It's only redeemable with a certain subset of merchants or business types. And then, the merchants can cash that back out. So Zach's idea was aligned with this, except, his interests were largely in tokenization and kind of blockchain-based solutions. And so this legislation was proposed in 2019. We actually supported that legislation. It did get passed, and we've been going through the RFP process towards the end of 2019. Again, you can't say too much about where we're at with it right now, but it's quite promising for us as a business what this opportunity presents. And I would say the biggest component of it is kind of because of how we get scrutinized when we talk to various dispensaries. I know a lot of people have asked us questions about, what does our network look like? Do we have dispensary adoption? Do we have any merchants using the software yet? And kind of the short answer to that is no, not really. We have some experimentation, but the feedback that we often get, and I will say it's not for lack of effort, the feedback that we often get is simply that there's concerns about compliance around it, about regulation around it, whether or not their business license would be compromised if they were to use this software. And so should this program go into effect, which we know it will, then any vendor who is approved will have the immediate legitimacy of the state of Nevada behind them. Essentially being able to go out and say, this local government body has assessed and vetted our business model, they've determined that based on what we've done, this is a valid business. This is a legitimate business, and it's essentially approved to be used throughout the state. So in our case, within Nevada, all of the relationships that we've built over the years, that we've gone in and had discussions about using our software, and where we've gotten maybe rejection or feedback that it's a great solution, but they're just concerned about the licensing aspect of it. Well, now we can immediately eliminate that as a concern. And so it's just very promising. You'll see some more news out on us from us on this real soon. We've been talking about it again for a couple of years, and it's been quite a bit of effort, but all that effort is really going to pay off in the near term. And I do see we've posted here in the channel a link to the actual legislation itself. So it is Assembly Bill 466 in the 80th legislative session in the state of Nevada. So please, guys, just keep dropping questions in there if you have them. Maybe I'll run into, here we go. Okay. Matthias asked on Telegram, how far are you with the development of the project? What features will you be working on in the near future? Another great question. We're quite far along. And actually, this is something, one, that we're proud of, well, very proud of. But I think, two, that really differentiates us from a lot of the other projects that are out there. We have software that's production ready and ready for adoption. So whereas many projects, particularly back in 2017, 2018, were promoting and presenting a vision of what could be, what we're presenting today is tangible solutions with real energy, effort, and capital expended on it, with the ability to essentially go out and deploy the software today and get adoption. So that's our focus today too, by the way, or going into the future, is really getting use of the software that we've built over the past couple of years. So again, if you look at the various verticals of our business model, starting with payments, the Tokes platform element and the point of sale is complete. MVP, production ready, with people signing up today. And that includes everything from our KYC compliance component of that, which is very, very important for our business model. I mean, we're at the intersection of really a couple of gray markets between cannabis industry itself, cryptocurrency, blockchain, with a lot of regulatory uncertainty, and then what we're doing in the payment space and transaction processing space. There's a high degree of regulatory reporting around that as well. And so for us, it's incredibly important that we're kind of crossing all our T's, dotting all of our I's, and making sure that we're meeting the highest standards of reporting requirements. And so we have a great partner that we work with on compliance, and every merchant that gets onboarded into the system will have to go through a KYC process. Every transaction that goes through the system also has ongoing AML compliance and reporting on it. So we feel confident that we can meet the various financial reporting requirements in the United States. But so that process is complete. The trade processing, transaction processing components of it, the merchant gateway administration elements are available. And then we still have some work to do on our e-commerce suite, on a framework that we're using that would make for really simple one-click deployments of storefronts that enable crypto payment processing in addition to other types of payment processing, all on the fly. And then we do have a web component plugin module as a feature of this. Again, that is really for existing e-commerce frameworks. So anybody that has a web store today, they can take this web component. They can either use the UI elements, the user interface elements that we've designed, or alternatively, they can take advantage of our Tokes Payments API, all of the underlying functionality, build in a button on their website that says pay with crypto or pay with Tokes, and immediately have accessibility to that. I do think this is probably a good point to point out as well, that our payment processing tool set is not exclusive to Tokes itself. We did that intentionally. It's absolutely critical that we enhance the value set and value proposition of the software. And so not only do we allow for Tokes-based payments, but we allow for Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dash, Waves, adding Ethereum, and we'll be continuing to add to that feature set such that we can entice as many merchants as possible to want to use this software to accept crypto payments. So that part's done. And then again, the compliance, the custody element of that, so that we allow merchants to deliver their funds to a fully insured digital currency account with our custodian without the need then to store, secure, and set up their own digital currency wallets. This can be overwhelming to somebody who's new to the space. And we also don't want people to lose funds by misplacing private keys or inappropriately securing wallets or losing a seed phrase or something like that. So we want to give them a complete turnkey solution that really all they have to do is enable that payment process on their website or in their store, and can start accepting crypto. Eden is very early stage in what we're delivering there. Today, it's really just an API function. You can think of it as a supplemental tool or a bolt-on tool. It's not standalone software. It's not standalone ERP. We want it to be very isolated in the service that we provide there. So again, what Eden does is essentially takes legacy data and legacy data structures and information from these enterprise resource planning software suites and duplicates that information onto the blockchain. And really, it's not even duplicating the underlying data. What we're doing is creating a hash associated with that data such that we'll know if it's ever been altered or changed in the future. And so we do have a really nice relationship with Theracan International on this. We've been working with them also for 2 years now on the implementation of this type of software into their existing seed to sale tracking suite. And so, think of them as a beta partner of ours. And Relly itself is launching a new, the back end is all complete on Relly, but we're launching a new front end on that would allow people to automatically subscribe to those services when they sign up on the site. So what features we'll be working on in the future, really just an extension of what we've been working on today. So continuing to add on to the payment tech or the digital currencies that we allow for today, that we accept today. And then continuing to build out on Eden on the front end services for a query application and a data entry application front end on that. So plenty of work to be done in the future on the development side, but I do feel good about where we are today with our existing products. And Shalin asks on Telegram to briefly break down the tokenomics of the token. Quite excited about this. We put a lot of thought into what alterations we should make to help drive value and utility to the underlying token itself. As we made this transition into multi-chain ventures and focused on the reissuance of the asset and kind of rebuilding of the underlying economic structures. And so, I think as many people know, what largely drives value in cryptocurrencies is really just a kind of basic fundamental economics of supply and demand. So it's really largely about, can you drive user demand for this cryptocurrency? We do that in a number of ways. The first of which is through our own merchant network that we're building out. So again, essentially for us, it's kind of a two-step process. Let's get adoption of the software. Let's get that propagated ubiquitously. And by default, people will then be able to accept tokes in their businesses. It doesn't mean that will be their preferred option, but we do know that it will at least add and extend our network to all of those businesses that are now using the software. Beyond that, we also incentivize the process of spending with tokes. And that's on both sides of the transaction. So a customer, for example, can go into a merchant's location and receive a 20 or 30% discount on their purchase simply by paying with tokes. On the back end of that, we want the merchants to be incentivized and compensated as well. And so the merchant would also get a 20 to 30% bonus on every transaction. Now, obviously, someone needs to cover that spread, and that's where we step in with our reserves that are in our treasury, and we subsidize that purchase. So we're actually the ones that are coming in and paying the discount for the customer and paying the bonus for the merchant. And those are funds that will need to be locked up for a short period of time to kind of help protect the network and protect the markets. But in effect, then we can start we can get people into using these our own asset as a preferred means. We also can tack on loyalty points and rewards systems into this entire ecosystem. We actually have a really exciting development coming out with really Tokes as a lifestyle brand and lifestyle currency. I guess I can reveal that today. It's just tokes.io is the new website. It's still a work in progress, but something that we're super excited about launching. And we're going to have all kinds of features that are consumer based within this new Tokes.io wallet that really helps drive attention into that component of the ecosystem. That's really just the demand side of things. We've also built in several incentive mechanics into the underlying protocol. And so that's things like our new staking mechanism. We want early adopters to be compensated in a way or benefit from being an early supporter of this network. And so essentially over a 2-year period, there's going to be a 50% staking reward distributed out, essentially 25% per year on wallet balances that's distributed out to holders. And again, kind of the idea here is we know that our merchant network isn't expansive today, but we need your help, one, to go out and request that merchants start accepting cryptocurrency and start accepting Tokes, and maybe talking to your local dispensary if you have a connection there. But two, simply holding Tokes in your wallet and then going out and making those requests, your wallet is going to receive a periodic distribution. So again, essentially what equates to a 50% increase in your underlying token supply over the period of 2 years, just for sitting and holding Tokes and supporting us. And then beyond that, we have a really creative mechanism that we developed out around what is a reduction of supply. So the token burn mechanism that will essentially eliminate tokens out of the marketplace based on total transaction volume. And this is an elective feature that each of the merchants will have to independently select. I guess it's not totally accurate to say it's at the protocol level, but any merchants that are using our payment technology will have the ability then to go in and say, we want to pay a fixed fee, or we want to pay a slightly lower fixed fee, but take a portion of all of the transaction volume, purchase Tokes with it, and then permanently burn those. And so depending on, this is very market dependent, but based on the price of the underlying token, we could see as much as a 50% reduction in the total token supply over time. And that will, again, accelerate based on the amount of transactions that we have going through the software. So for us, it's largely adoption, get people using it, and then incentivize and encourage people to pay with Tokes and request Tokes usage throughout their own consumer purchasing decisions. So I'd say that's a pretty expansive overview of the tokenomics. And yes, we are a Waves asset. We saw a number of benefits at the time when we launched on Waves in 2016. But when you think about a payment network, kind of the two most important functions are fast transactions and cheap transactions. And as we've seen with bottlenecks in the Ethereum network, particularly over 2017, when a lot of ICOs were going on, you could see a complete bog down of the network itself, and transactions were not getting through if there was like a very popular ICO running at the time. And so that's not something that we can tolerate. We need to ensure that merchants that are trying to accept a payment can do so immediately. And so Waves has one of the highest transaction throughputs of any protocol, and transaction fees are less than a penny. Yeah, and we also did just post a link in the channel there of our tokenomics document. It goes through extensively all of the details that I was outlining before. Ron asks, why the 2-year staking? Is that just to buy some time to establish the business? Will there be any ongoing staking model? So Ron, great question. And you're absolutely right. So essentially, we know that it's still going to take some time to build up our adoption. And so it's just a rough estimate of what we think will give us the mass and momentum to move forward. And so 2 years was, should be more than sufficient time for us to continue to develop up that network. After the 2-year period, it's most likely that we drop the staking rewards will be distributed. There is an allocation, by the way, that we've set aside, and that's gone into a smart contract that we built within the Waves Ride coding language. And so it's essentially 10% of the total supply, and that will go to the circulating supply, will be distributed out to the circulating supply of token holders. And it will exclude any exchange addresses, by the way. So essentially, you need to be holding your tokens in a private wallet for which you manage the private keys. But after that, we have every ability to continue to incentivize use and adoption. And so that's where we get into things like more extensive loyalty points or rewards programs or additional discount features, things of this nature. So it's really just kindling, starter fuel for our network to get some people talking about it, and for the people that won't have any immediate use, I guess, of the token itself, rewarding them for being that early adopter. So hope that answers the question. What are the main challenges multi-chain ventures might face in the near future? One of the things that is always a concern to us, again, is just this evolving regulatory environment. It's very difficult to navigate. We never know what's going to happen in cryptocurrency. We don't know what's going to happen around token issuance. We don't necessarily know what's going to happen in the cannabis industry. And so these are things that we keep the pulse of quite closely. We're always following the news on regulation around cannabis, around payments, around cryptocurrency and blockchain regulation, all of these things. So I don't know that it will necessarily be a challenge, but I would say that it's something that we have to be very careful that we stay on top of. Outside of that, it's, our biggest objective, our mission here going forward is in the adoption of cryptocurrencies. And this is not just a challenge that we're facing. It's a challenge that pretty much all crypto projects are facing right now. So we see these waves. And again, I've been in the space for quite a few years now, 2013. I've seen bull cycles, I've seen bear cycles, I've seen a bull cycle and another bear cycle. And so what we get in these euphoric bull cycles is a lot of people coming in to speculate on cryptocurrencies, which I think is fantastic. I mean, obviously there's financial risk there, but the enthusiasm, the excitement, it creates a desire for knowledge. And I think this is an incredibly positive thing. It's one of the things that attracted me to cryptocurrency in the first place was, hey, there's this entirely new marketplace out there where I can essentially trade assets, trade these speculative, highly volatile assets. It sucked me in, and I was super interested. But the reality is I'm here now today, not because of the speculative components, but because of the power of this underlying technology. And so we're going to continue seeing that. We'll see new people get attracted to the industry and into cryptocurrency. Many of them will drop off when market sentiment goes bad and when they feel like they lost money, but many others will continue to investigate and research what the potential is here. And that's going to build up over time. But nevertheless, the main point here is that cryptocurrency adoption, broad adoption, is probably still a couple of years away. And so we see it incumbent on us to help educate the world at large of the potential beneficial features of this. And again, that's one of the reasons why we're targeting the cannabis industry. They have a real problem. They can't use credit or debit card payments. They don't have access to bank accounts in really any legitimate fashion. We have an immediate solution for them, and here's why you should use it. So I think adoption for us will continue to be a challenge, but something that we're putting all of our energy into going into the future. All right, so Assuming all IEO tokens sell, and if the 5-cent price is maintained, any guess on the approximate market cap on 18th of February? Right. So what we have in the new circulating supply is approximately 100 million tokes that will be distributed to legacy holders. That's purely mathematical distribution based on existing circulating supply. We're increasing the total the total supply of the token by 20x. We previously were at 50 million. We're going up to 1 billion. And so any legacy token holder is going to really not only receive a proportional distribution, not just 20x, but because they've been a part of this project for so long, in many cases, and in many cases, I know names on a personal basis, people who have been around in our Telegram or in our Slack or have communicated with us through other means. They're actually getting a 25% bonus on their snapshot distribution amount. And so what that equates to is roughly 10% of the new supply will go out to legacy holders. 10% of the supply is allocated to this new IEO. And so, the reality is that's essentially the circulating supply for the next immediate phase. We do have, as I said, 10 million tokes are allocated to the staking pool. So those will be distributed slowly over the period of 2 years. That is in a smart contract that's completely locked up. And then we also have 10% of the supply that is allocated to strategic partnerships. Now, those are not locked tokens. We need those to be immediately accessible to us because we'll use those for things like going into a dispensary or speaking to a large cannabis operator or speaking to a merchant processor for that matter, and letting them know we're willing to invest them in our network and into our underlying token if they're willing to work with us, if they're willing to adopt our software. And so that 10% is technically in float, though it's not really circulating until we distribute it. And then we have the remaining 60% of the token, which isn't just it's in our treasury. And that's to be used for things like marketing and operations and development and general operating costs over time. I think I maybe overlooked this when I was talking about tokenomics, but this really is an element of it. Our corporate governance and treasury management, which we've always been very transparent about, by the way. I mean, people can go back and look at our blog. We've always put out a quarterly transparency report on how many tokes have been distributed over time. So I would actually encourage you to do that. That's something we will continue to do. But one of the new features that we were able to build out with this token reissuance is a corporate vesting mechanism. And so those 60% that are remaining are not available to us at all. We essentially do a cliff vesting over 7 months where we have no access to tokens. And then again, over the period of 2 years, we will distribute those equally over 24 months. So 1/24 of the remaining 60% supply will be distributed to us each month for 24 months. So the rest of the tokens, it's a total 30-month window before we get full access to those. So it's a long way to answer your question, but yes, it should approximately be I guess a $10 million market cap if you want to look at it that way, based on 5 cents per token and 20 million or 200 million in circulating supply. So we have a great question here about one of our partners, that is, who is Vault Logic and what's the relationship to the project? They've been a phenomenal partner of ours from the beginning, but what they have created is some really innovative crypto ATM hardware. It's a really beautiful device. We'll post a link to their website. You can see it, but this crypto kiosk essentially allows for the purchase and sale of cryptocurrency assets as its primary function. Most Bitcoin ATMs, for example, will only let you go one way. They'll only let you buy. They don't let you necessarily sell Bitcoin back to them. So we think it's really cool that they have buy and sell function, not only on Bitcoin, but on a whole subset, probably 10 different assets today. And they continue to expand their asset list as well. Yeah, the link is there in the chat right now, but Tokes is one of the assets that they've been supporting, and they've been a great supporter of ours for a long time. How they work into the ecosystem is through a number of different methods, but first and foremost, when we look at relationships like dispensaries or merchants, who are willing to accept cryptocurrency, our first go-to is also how do we get consumers in those locations on-ramped into cryptocurrency if they don't already have it? This is another big part of the adoption puzzle that needs to be solved. So what we want to do is get these Vault Logic machines placed all over cities where we operate. Las Vegas in particular is the kicking off point, and then allow for again things like discounts or bonuses for people that are paying in tokes. And if they want that bonus or the consumer wants that discount, all they have to do is walk up to the crypto kiosk, the Vault Logic machine, and purchase some tokes to their mobile wallet. And now they'll be able to spend that in store through our point of sale software or through whatever other payment integration we have with their, say, existing point of sale software. So the machine, the equipment itself also has a lot of additional functionality. And you can do things like prepaid debit cards can be purchased through there. You can do check cashing. You can do mobile minutes. Individuals can pay their utility bills direct through this hardware. So the way Vault Logic presents it is really as a way of helping the unbanked, and it's completely true. And I think we hear that a lot in cryptocurrency and blockchain, and like ways to empower people who are currently don't have really access to the legacy financial system. So we're looking at cannabis, but there's millions of people worldwide who have no access to a bank account and no access to credit cards themselves. They have to pay all their bills in cash. And in many cases, they're one missed payment away from essentially being bankrupted. And so this hardware not only helps with cryptocurrency, but it helps individuals like that do things like go pay their power bills at a location that's close to them. So we think it's important for many reasons, but for us, it's largely about getting consumers into the crypto ecosystem, allowing them to purchase cryptocurrency, and then have a network to spend that in. I will also say, again, somewhat discreetly, but they're integral to the closed loop pilot program, the Assembly Bill 466 that we had alluded to earlier. They're a very necessary component of our system architecture, but just as easily as a consumer could deposit cash into one of these vaults, I will tell you a business could use it as a valuable tool to deposit their cash into a vault and to create or purchase tokens for themselves. So that's and that relationship now also extends back nearly 2 years, if not more. So what happens if cannabis is federally legal? Certainly something we've considered, and again, something that we keep the pulse of quite closely. We've had a number of people talk to us about. Well, we saw the legislation when it passed around the. I'm spacing on the name, but just the federal bill to essentially legalize cannabis. And most likely, even if that does pass Senate, it's, we know the legislative process. We've gone through it ourselves. It takes years to get anything in effect, and then it takes years more to get programs implemented. So we don't see federal legalization coming down the pipeline for at least 5 years. But with that said, that's not our strategy, is just hoping that it doesn't get legalized. That's one of the reasons why we've expanded our business model beyond Toke's platform. Again, we see opportunity in digital currency payment processing itself, regardless of if it's an absolute necessity or if it's just a new tool that someone wants to use. I guess you could go back 70 years now and ask people, why they would want to use credit cards when cash works perfectly fine. And it results, the answer is convenience, essentially. And so what we want to do is build convenience and benefits to people who are spending cryptocurrency and encourage that use. So it's not incumbent on cannabis being federally illegal for our business model to work. It helps us today because it really drives the use case and drives the necessity and makes us a bit more opportunistic. But even if it does get legalized, we see value in that. We see people wanting to use cryptocurrency in the future, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. So, and again, cannabis payments is just one segment of our business now. We still have the industry agnostic digital currency payment processing. We also have the various supply chain visibility tools, and then we have Relay Cloud as well. So we're really quite diversified across multi-chain ventures. It's probably more appropriate to think of us as a portfolio of financial technology and blockchain technology than it is to think of us as say a cannabis entity. But we do put a lot of energy into cannabis because of the opportunity that exists today. So hope that helps. Yep, and so, kind of follow-up question, I somewhat addressed that, but could someone use the merchant gateway for a business that isn't cannabis related or strictly dispensaries? Absolutely, and that's what we hope. Just as you could just as easily see the use of, say, the Cubed merchant gateway down at the coffee shop or at your local apparel store, or probably more appropriately in e-commerce applications, as you could in your local dispensary. So that's one of the initiatives that we're undertaking today as part of our broader adoption strategy. Yeah, fantastic question from Google. What does it cost to implement the merchant gateway software with my business today? Nothing is the short answer. So we want people to use this. We're very proud of what we built. Actually, behind me here is a backdrop that shows what the interface looks like. And so again, it is all web application. Any internet connected device can use it. We see it being used on tablets. Again, as you see it behind me, we also have a beautiful mobile consumer wallet. The point of sale software can run on a mobile phone, on a tablet, on a desktop, or it can be integrated into legacy point of sale software. But we're not charging anything today to use the software. And in fact, the opposite. Not only are we not charging a fee for subscription, we're waiving any transaction fees on the software. We're also waiving trade processing fees on the software. And then in addition to that, for these early adopters, we're actually going to be, again, vesting you into our network by distributing more tokens to you for using them. So we want to make it very easy to propagate this to early businesses. And the faster we see that, the quicker we'll terminate the program. So, I guess my suggestion is, if you have an interest in using it, please reach out to us soon, because we do think that this is an appealing proposition. And we think that businesses will want to start adopting early. And so if you want to receive those early bonuses, then please reach out to us soon. Yeah, how does Relly fit into the multi-chain ecosystem? Well, again, this was largely developed for our own needs. We wanted to ensure that we had really highly reliable application hosting for things like our merchant gateway software. It's again, looking back at the response to why Waves and why not ERC20. Well, merchants expect their payment networks to be up and running with 100% efficiency. And so if our application ever went down, then very likely we'd start to lose customers very quickly. Forcing a merchant to lose revenue is not a good way to build a business relationship with them. And so we started developing out this really sophisticated system architecture that allows for multiple redundancies, and it also allows for things like rolling out feature updates with zero downtime required. So we have multiple clusters running of every instance. And so if we want to roll out a new feature, we can essentially roll that out to one cluster, and then those features will start to be delivered to customers that sign on after that point. But in the meantime, existing customers are able to use the other two clusters that we're running. So again, it's essentially a method of rolling out features with no downtime required whatsoever. Other things that we want to do with Relly that are blockchain related include node hosting, setup and hosting. Many of you may be familiar with Infura. They're probably the biggest organization around Ethereum node hosting. Ethereum nodes are extremely compute intensive. It's quite hard to maintain stability on an Ethereum node. And so in many cases, it's easier just to go to them and say, hey, spin up a node for me so that I can be connected to the blockchain and know what, and ensure I have consistency in that operation. Well, we can do things like that with Relly as well, quite easily. And I mean, that's essentially what it's designed to do for ourselves, not necessarily from a node perspective, but from a hosting and stability perspective. So we want to do that. Master node structures, one-click deployments of storefronts, and numerous other features that are related to blockchain entities. We're passionate about blockchain, and we're passionate about technology, but we want to ensure that all of the services that we build out in some way contribute to both the open source ecosystem, but also cryptocurrency at large. So that's kind of how it fits in. It really is today exists to host our applications and our software, but it's a tool that's available to other developers as well. So my co-founder Gabriel posted here, where do we see the crypto ecosystem in 5 years? What do you think a payment adoption will look like, and where do you see Bitcoin adoption? I honestly just see things going up, not only in value that's in the ecosystem, but it definitely in adoption levels. Again, I think this is kind of related to the hype cycles. Essentially what we see is value going up, prices going up, media exposure to this, people talking about it. That sucks more people in with the opportunity to make money. And then ultimately the whole thing crashes. So we, highly volatile markets. But again, the benefit there is that not everyone will stick around that got in for the money, but many people will. And this is how you start to build momentum, because those people will start to talk to their friends, or they'll identify some business opportunity, or they'll identify some other opportunity to simply talk about crypto. And the more people that eventually get involved, the quicker this thing is going to grow, and we'll just see exponential growth in adoption eventually. I do think that the fundamentals and the metrics are there too. A lot of people talk about institutional adoption, institutional money coming in, things like DeFi, decentralized finance. It's all apparent to me that there's significant interest brewing, and I don't think any of that's going to slow down. If anything, I think more money is going to pour in. We're going to see more innovation, more attractive features, and more reasons for people to use crypto. So we're still at a nascent stage where it's a bit difficult to use this software. User interfaces aren't really fully refined. People are still losing money because they misplace a private key and there's no way to recover it. And so, I think anyone that's here today, we're in a fortunate position, because despite the fact that it might feel like this market's maturing, we are still super early, and we're going through some of the struggles and some of the challenges that you have to face in a developing ecosystem and in a developing industry. And so, the upside potential from where we are is enormous. And this is, really what I define as asymmetric risk profile. And my background was really in legacy finance, in private wealth management and portfolio management. And so, when we look at the risk return of a profile of an investment, that's how you determine, how much you should really be willing to pay for something. But when we look at the upside potential of investing in something like Bitcoin, or purchasing cryptocurrencies, or investing in companies that are in this space today, the upside potential is so enormous, it's almost foolish not to take some small gamble on it, if you will, to take some small bet. And when you look at portfolio assessment numbers on the integration of Bitcoin into an investor portfolio, something like 1%. And we typically look at these things in modern portfolio theory as efficient market hypothesis, and what is the efficient frontier of an investment. When you add Bitcoin or add cryptocurrency to your portfolio, the return profile increases so substantially relative to the amount of risk that you increase in the portfolio. Again, it's foolish not to take some exposure. So obviously everybody on the call today probably has some exposure to cryptocurrency. I'm preaching to the choir here, but I guess the point for me is that I just see this adoption continuing to increase. I see the value continuing to increase. I see us as being incredibly early, despite this being a decade-old industry. I think that the tool sets that we're building today are going to be incredibly valuable in the future. I feel like we're way ahead of the curve on what we're doing. And I think we're going to struggle a bit because we need to convince people that there's value here, that these tools are usable and useful. But I do think once we start getting that momentum behind us, it's going to be unstoppable. When can I see it live on exchanges? If then where? So yeah, so I mean, we're running the IEO across 3 exchanges right now. We're on Probit, P2P, B2B, and LaToken. And we have the phase 1 of that closing on February 18th. So in all likelihood, we will be available in those markets as of February 18th. Though I will caveat that and say we've had some discussions with the exchanges, and there's been a request to perhaps extend that into a round 2. So we will see where that goes. But in any case, those will be the primary listing exchanges. And then, of course, because we're a Waves asset, we're immediately accessible on the Waves DEX. And that's just waves.exchange is how you can access the wallet. That's not only a local desktop wallet if you want to use it. They have an in-browser wallet you can also use. And you know, the markets are built into the wallet feature itself. So we are coming down to a close here. I think we have time for one more question to squeeze in. But this has really been fantastic. You know, a lot of good questions have come through. So for the people who are here, thank you. What is the ultimate goal of Multichain Ventures as part of this goal? What do you want to achieve in 2020? I mean, ultimate goal is just the propagation of digital currency and blockchain throughout the world. And that's a really big, broad goal to have. But I mean, what we're looking to do today is to continue to develop out the feature set that makes cryptocurrencies appealing to the mass population, to the public. It's not there yet. Again, you know, user interface, user experience is lacking currently. It's confusing, it's scary, it's risky. And so, you know, our goal is to kind of reduce all of those risks and reduce the friction of getting into the space. That I do feel like we're successful at. And if you look at our software, you know, our Danny Floyd, our chief experience officer, likes to call it as being granny proof. Everything that we've done is intended to make it very easy for a user to get on and start using the software. We don't want this onerous, burdensome onboarding and educational process. Where there are educational requirements, we're going out and taking that effort to teach them what they need to know. And likewise with, say, for example, you know, working with legislators in the state of Nevada to teach them about blockchain and how this works and why it can benefit and reduce risk in the cannabis industry. Those are the types of lobbying and legislative and educational efforts that we're undertaking today to get people understanding this stuff. So we see it as a responsibility of ours to educate, given our level of understanding of this. And we think that the education is going to make it easier to adopt and then make easy to use software with friendly interfaces that people want to use and adds value to their business. So in terms of 2020, again, you know, it's to continue to refine the software, but I feel good about where we are with our existing development. And so 2020 is just all about adoption for us. So if you're a merchant and you're interested in accepting cryptocurrency, please reach out. If you have friends who are merchants, please let them know about what we're doing. And we'd love to create some more partnerships and continue to build out this whole ecosystem. So thanks, PDX, for the kind words. And yeah, I think we'll close there, guys, but this was really fantastic Q&A. I think we'll probably do some more of these in the future. So keep the questions queued up and feel free to reach out to us on either Twitter. You can reach out to us on Facebook, email us at support@multichain.ventures. You can reach me directly on Twitter. I believe it's MV_M Wagner. So thanks so much, everyone. Really appreciate this and have a great weekend.